Hello and welcome back to yet another Tales from my backlog as we're at the last movie review for this month. And as you can tell by the title, it is a first time watch of Terminator Dark Fate, the final Terminator film that I have yet to watch. I started with the first three last year, and now I've reviewed the last three. Uh, this year, 3 months ago, I reviewed Genesis. At the beginning of the year, I reviewed Salvation. And I have mixed feelings about this franchise. I didn't necessarily like the first one. I enjoyed T2. T2 is obviously the best one, which, that's what all Terminator fans do say. I didn't mind 3. I I didn't mind Salvation. I loved Genesis. And what did I think of this one, Dark Fate? Well, I thought that it was okay. It was, I have some enjoyment out of it. I have enjoyment of seeing, Linda Hamilton return as the OG Sarah Connor, being, because we get a new version of Sarah Connor in Genesis, played by Amelia Blunt, I believe it was. But yeah, I was happy to see her back because she hasn't really returned to the franchise since Terminator 3. Not since Terminator 3, since Terminator 2, because in Terminator 3, that's when we learned that she died in that timeline. And once again, we got another timeline shift. The film opens up with, watching a clip from T2 where Sarah Connor is talking about the dream she had about, Skynet and all that stuff. And then it cuts to them, herself and John on this vacation. And I thought that, the CG slash de-aging that they did, to make, to have the proper, like how Linda Hamilton looked back then, as well as the young John Connor, was great, especially, Arnie, because as well, because, we get the T-800 coming up and shooting, killing John Connor dead, and thus yet another timeline branch. It hurts my head trying to keep up with the many, many different timelines that this franchise loves to shoot at us. I'm gonna try and angle this bit better. Yeah, that'll do. So then, of course, we jump to 2020, 22 years since 1998. And we now have this new timeline. So we get, obviously, this person who we now know as Grace. She comes back from the future of 2042, I believe it was. And then we also get a new Terminator known as Rev 9. Now, I'll get to him now in a second. And basically, they're trying to get to this person named Danny, because Danny is the new John Connor of this timeline, where Skynet doesn't come to be. Skynet has officially been put to rest, and it's this new batch of evil AI called the Legion, and they spawn these new Terminators called Rev 9. And I really like them. That it's an interesting take on the Terminator design because they can split into multiple different Rev 9s and attack. And unfortunately, when they copy a person, they kill that person. So that happened to Danny's dad. Danny's brother also dies pretty early on. And whilst they're on the bridge with Grace trying to save Danny, because that's why she was sent back in time, basically replaying threads of Terminator 1 again. And then Sarah Connor shows up. And so Danny and Grace nick Sarah Connor's van. They go off. Sarah Connor eventually catches up. And this is where we learn that, Grace is an augment. She's been augmented in order to be able to fight these new Rev 9 Terminators. Because you either kill them within the first few minutes or you die yourself. And so she needs this medication and stuff. Eventually, Sarah Connor catches up. And, a bunch of other things happen. Turns out that Sarah Connor has been killing other Terminators that have been sent into the past because she keeps getting these texts every now and again with coordinates to where these Terminators show up, followed by just two words after that for John. And so Grace is able to figure out where these texts originate from because she also has the exact same coordinates tattooed on her as well, and it's somewhere in Texas. So they go, they cross the border, they get held up by the border patrol, they eventually escape, and then they make it there to this remote place, and we see this van with the name Carl on it, and then as they go to knock on the door, out pops who else but the T-800 himself. And it's the exact same T-800 that was responsible for killing John. And that would have been a really great scene had it not been spoiled in trailers. You see, I remember back in 2019 when this film was coming out, of seeing that shot, the shot of, the T-800 stepping out and Sarah Connor saying he killed John. Now, prior to watching this film, I thought that meant, from what we learn in from Terminator 2 or slash Terminator 3, that there was a version of the T-800 that killed John Connor. Um, so that's what I thought that trailer was referenced to prior to watching this film. But unfortunately, that just fucking ruined it. Eventually, more stuff happens. Turns out, that's when Danny gets told that the that she is the new version of John Connor. They eventually manage to stop it, and then that T-800 also sacrifices himself. And yeah, it's basically just Terminator 1, but not as good as Terminator Genesis, version of it, where basically the timeline has been fixed set. It goes Terminator 1, Terminator 2, Terminator 3, and then Terminator Salvation, which then Salvation leads into the beginning of Genesis. But that's when once Kyle travels back in time, that's when we learn that of the timeline change where with Sarah Connor already having a different T-800 that she managed to reprogram to be good, and that's what got that, which is my second favorite film in the franchise. I really enjoyed Terminator Genesis. I went in with zero expectations for Genesis, and I really enjoyed it. However, with Dark Fate, I just was it was all right. As I think there's been talks about getting a new Terminator film. I'm not 100% sure on that one. I can't remember. But yeah, this is it. This is the end for me with the Terminator franchise. So yeah, I'm definitely going to keep saying should have ended with T2. As much as I love Genesis, and I've been saying it every time, ever since I started to, ever since I watched Terminator 3, um, Gen- Terminator 3, Salvation, Genesis, and now Dark Faith should have ended with um, with T2. That whole sacrifice, preventing Skynet from being a thing. That the whole Terminator story should have just ended there. Um, but yeah, I've somewhat enjoyed my time going through these films. I see why a lot of people love them. I see why Terminator 2 is held in so high regard. And I get why people don't like it. Any of the Terminator films that come after that are just subjective. Like I said, Genesis is my second favorite film in this franchise. But yeah, it was just okay. The action was fine. There was some dodgy CG stuff in the early parts of the movie that I noticed pretty early on. After that, that was the only issues really with the CGI. But yeah, it's basically just a near one to one remake of the first film, just change, different characters and stuff. The first film still happened, but in this timeline's versions of things, which is how we got to see Sarah Connor in this one. Again, I was super happy to see Linda Hamilton reprise her role as Sarah Connor because she was a badass in the first two films, and I really enjoyed her. And I was sad that we didn't get to see more of her in the franchise, but now we do have this one. So yeah, it's not my personal favorite. I probably would rank this dead last. I say my ranking would be Terminator 2, Genesis, Terminator 1, um, Rise of the Machines, Salvation, and Dark Fate. I think that's how I would rank them. But that is going to wrap this review up. So if you have seen this film, I mean obviously, um, then let me know what you thought of it in the comments down below. And yeah, I'll see you all on the next upload, which I believe should be, as I'm clicking back through here, it should be yes, I'll see you all on Friday for my review of The Orville Season 1. Yes, I've decided to rewatch The Orville because it's been a while since I've seen Season 1 and 2. And yeah, I'll see you all on Friday for that one.